Hey guys, it's Travis with bpnorthwest.com. Well, I did a video a little earlier today about how to troubleshoot working on your car, and I found out that I had a busted wire going from my coil to my distributor cap, which tells me it's probably time to tune the car up, or maybe even a little bit late. So what you usually want to do in a tune-up is you want to change your plug wires, you want to change your plugs, you want to change your cap, or at least inspect your cap and rotor, make sure everything is good there. You're also going to want to change the oil and just do some overall inspecting. Make sure your air filter is clean. Check your fuel filter, make sure that's good. And we're going to run through most of that today. We're not going to do the oil change since we've already done a video on that, but we're going to do everything else. A couple of things that you're going to need. You want a new set of plug wires for your car. You want to get a set of plugs, whatever your preference is. I like these NGK. I think they're a really good quality spark plug. You're going to want a cap. You're going to want some anti-seize for the spark plugs. And you can get them. You can get little packets of it. It's the same thing. I use a lot of anti-seize. Everything that I have that has threads has anti-seize on it. So you're going to want a little anti-seize. You're going to want a ratchet with a plug, a 5/8 plug socket on it, and you're going to need a plug gapper, and you're probably going to need a couple other basic tools here and there along the way. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start gapping the plugs and putting them in. When it comes time to start gapping your plugs, hop into your service manual and find out exactly what the gap is supposed to be. Now this motor is a 1500, so if you have an MG or a Triumph 1500 motor, your gap is going to be 0.025, which isn't very much. I've got this kind of style of a gapper here. This is a 0.025 that I've pulled out. Same thing if you have one of those that it hooks on and it slides around, kind of dials around to where it's going to be. 0.025 is what we need for this particular vehicle. All you need to do is slide this right in between like that, and so you don't have much play. And these are pretty well gapped at the right size. Now if it's too big of a gap, you just tap the end just like that, and then you try it again. Now it's a little too much now. So what you do then is, if it's a little too much, now this isn't too much because it fits, but if it is too much and you can't slide it in, you can take and catch the corner like that and try and bend it up just a little bit. Be real easy. I mean, this is super soft metal, and it's going to be real easy to get this thing gapped to the right amount. Now do all 4 plugs, and then we'll start putting them in. Okay, now that our plugs are gapped, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start replacing our plugs. Now the most important thing you need to remember here is you don't just start grabbing wires and pulling them off. There's a specific firing order to all this, and you don't want to get it mixed up. So that's why we do one at a time. I remember about 20 years ago my brother went to tune up his Jeep, and he took all the wires off, and when he put the new ones on, it wouldn't run. So it's a pretty tedious process to figure out where the first position is and then put all those wires back. So the first thing you want to do, grab your number 1 plug right here and pop that off. Leave it on the distributor cap. Even though I know we're going to replace these pretty quick, we're going to put the new plug in, we're going to put the wire back, and then we're going to, just like I said, go one at a time because we don't want to mess up this firing order. Now, grab your socket. This is a 13/16. I think I said 5/8 earlier. It's actually a 13/16 socket wrench. Go ahead and put that on the first plug and just take it out. Now these plugs are not in very tight, and there's no need to. You don't really have to over tighten them. You just want them in there snug. So once you get it twisted out, we're going to pull that plug out and take a look at it and see how it's doing. Now if you look, my plugs are really black and they're really worn. So it's a perfect time to start replacing these things. So we get our new plug. There's a little rubber grommet in here that kind of holds your plugs in place, which is really handy. So that way they don't fall out. Stick a plug in here, grab some anti-seize. And we don't need a lot, just a little bit, just enough to keep them from seizing up, so you know when you go the next time to change the plugs, you won't have any trouble with them. Anti-seize is extremely important on these because you don't change them as often as you do in a regular car. I mean, this could be once every 10-year thing. So we got a little anti-seize on it. We're going to put it back in the number 1 position here, and we're going to tighten it down to finger tight. Okay. Then we're going to take our ratchet. Again, don't over tighten these. If you over tighten them, you're going to strip out the head. Then that's going to be a longer video. So you're only going to put maybe a quarter of a turn to a half a turn on these, and that's it. Okay? Now, if your socket gets stuck on there, no big deal. Grab you a pair of needle nose pliers and catch the end and pop it off. Happens all the time. So, first plug is changed. We're going to take our plug wire and we're going to stick it right back on tight. Make sure it snaps because we don't want it to fall off and lose its place. Then we move on to the next one. Okay, now that our plugs are back in, let's start with the cap and the wires. Now go ahead and grab your cap and set it out. You're going to notice there's 2 tabs on these, okay, and it doesn't matter if it goes that way or that way, it's the same. So, let's set that down. Now we're going to grab our plug wires and we're going to pull them out. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to determine length on our plug wires. Which one's the shortest, which one's the longest. Now these, you have 2 long and 2 short. So the 2 short ones are going to go to the second and third plug, and the 2 long ones are going to go to the first and the fourth. Now, since we are putting in a new cap, here's what we want to do. Take your new distributor cap, and you see where these clips are. Okay, so we're going to hold it just like that. And we're going to start with a long one for our number 4 plug. And we're going to plug it in there, into the number 4 spot. We're going to get it on there nice and snug. Okay. Then we're going to pull it off of the number 4, throw that one aside, and we'll put the new one on right there. Okay? The next one we want to do is number 3. So we take off the number 3 and we just let it flop. We know 3 is a short one, so we grab a short one. 3 is going to go right here, right next to it. Get that on secure. We're going to put that on the number 3 position. Okay. Then we take off number 3 and we set it aside. Now we're up to number 2. So we pop off number 2 here, let it hang. 2 is a shorter one. We know it plugs in here. Alright. Then we move it around to the number 2 spot and we plug it in. And then we take off number 2. Now we're down to number 1. That's the last wire we have. One goes up top. Okay, now you take these little clips and you can take your coil wire off because you know where that goes. Now the coil wire will need to be replaced as well. That's going to come in your kit. but I already took it out of the kit to do the last video when I had to do some troubleshooting. So now, you take your clips and you pop them off, just like that. One on that side, one on that side. You pull it out, set it aside. Take your new coil, your new distributor cap, put it right on top. It's gonna, you'll have to twist it around a little bit, and it'll fall right into place where it needs to go. Okay? And then you just clip it right back on. Okay? Now you make sure all your connections are nice and tight. Then you put your coil wire right back on in the middle here. Okay, then you make sure all these connections are good and tight, and that's how you do that.